Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I am quite excited. I have a cook with me and today we are going to make a beef stew. The weatherman has just been on. He said there's a storm coming in off the Atlantic. The weather's going to get colder. The rain is coming. So that is just all the warning or all the signs I need that it's time to stew. Now when I do my stew, I'm going to do a beef stew. I'm not doing a traditional lamb stew, I'm going to do a beef stew. And what I use for my beef stew is I use a very cheap cut of meat. I use a shin cut of meat. There's usually a bit of bone in it. Well, actually, funny enough, the ones I got today don't have bone in it. So the thing about cooking a cheap meat is you have to go long and you've got to go slow. So you can do this in the oven by all means. I personally prefer to do mine in the slow cooker. And I normally cook it for sort of 12 hours the first day, switch it off before I go to bed, and then I heat it up on high the next day for about 3 hours, just getting it heated all the way through. We normally serve it with mashed potatoes underneath. Sometimes I put potatoes in. I wasn't going to put potatoes into this stew. I ended up, when I turned it off at the end of the first day, I ended up throwing a few in. Or we serve it normally with soda bread as well. So that is the way we're going to do it today. Now I have got 3 Yorkshire puddings I need to use up in the in the freezer. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to serve a stew. There's no right or wrong way of the ingredients put into a stew. You can put sirloin steak into a stew. The only difference is a sirloin steak, because it's such a good quality meat, it will dissolve into your stew. Where the cheaper cuts, even though they'll give you all the flavour that a sirloin or a really expensive cut of meat will give you, they hold their shape and you get nice chunky bits of meat in the stew. So without further ado, let's get into this cooking video. Okay, so these are the ingredients I use in my stew. Other people will use different things and that's okay. That is okay. You put in what your family will eat. So this is the shin. Now, as you can see, there's an awful lot of fat, connective tissue, everything that just needs breaking down. These normally come in 2 rounds and I've asked the butchers to cut it in half because I don't want 4 big rounds going into this. I want 8 halves going into it because it gives more meat. So that's there. That's the other one is there. You can see all this needs breaking down. Then in this bowl I have some turnip, carrots and 1 parsnip, and I've cut them in quite big chunks. And you need them in big chunks because you don't want them to disintegrate into your stew. You need them to hold their shape, so you need the bigger bits. And remember, this is going to go for 10 hours today, so it's, you need them to hold their shape. I have some water here because this is going to be for my stew mix. I have some potatoes. I don't know how many of them I'm going to put in. I'll judge that as I'm going. And this is the frozen diced tomatoes. I don't want the juice of the tomatoes, so I just want the tomatoes, so I buy them frozen in Tesco, so I'm going to use that. So what I use for my mix, for my beef, well this says beef casserole or beef stew or whatever the hell you want to call it, but this would be one beef. The reason I like using packets, and I know the last time I used a packet people were like, oh my god, you could make that up out of your cupboard and use your own spice. Yeah, I could. I really could. But I tend to either over or under, and at least this way it comes already measured. I don't have to worry about it. So what is in this packet? So it has cornstarch, tomato powder, onion powder, salt, yeast, barley, malt, wheat, spices which include garlic, black pepper, parsley root, herbs that are parsley and thyme. So that's what's in there. So it's already pre-measured. All I have to do is throw it into the water, mix it up with my wuzz, pray it doesn't go everywhere, and throw it in. So you know me, as I said, I am a lazy cook. So I just throw everything in. I don't bother browning meat or any of that malarkey. I just throw it in. Now, one of the key ingredients I use, and yeah, some people are going to get very, ugh, I can't believe you do that. In here I have part of the shin bone. Now I asked the butcher to cut a piece and they did, but there's all meat. Let me take it out. There's all meat on that that'll fall off the bone, But more importantly, the inside of that bone is full of marrow, nutrients, all that. And because it's going to cook for so long, all that is going to come out and go into your stew. And that is my little secret flavour ingredient. And it gives so much flavour. Obviously, you're going to take it out when it's done. And usually my kids don't get to see this. They'll know it now because it's, if they ever watch my YouTube video. But that's what I do. So I'm going to place the bone just there. Just throw it in. There's no special precautions you have to take with it. Just put it in. And literally then I am going to just dump everything in on top of it. So one of the things I do before I put the meat in is I just put a little bit of pepper on it. We like pepper. I'm not going to put much in because I like to season it at the end when I taste it and know what I'm doing or what I'm at. So I use a, what's that? That is a coarse ground black pepper. So we're going to do that. Here you go, Mr. Pepper. And we are literally going to just dump. In you go. Off you go. See, they're happy. They're excited to get into the pot. So that's what it is. Hang on now till I get a... So I'm actually going to change camera and put you on a tripod so you'll be able to see better. So then in on top of the meat, I am just going to put the frozen tomatoes. What's that? Frozen diced tomatoes. So it means you have the tomatoes but not the juice, which is what we want. And then I'm going to put my carrots, turnips and parsnip in on top of that. And just throw that in. And as you see, they're all quite big pieces. Like they're quite thick. None of them are thin, so they're going to hold their shape. So we're going to throw that in. And then I'm going to put in my sauce. Now what I am going to put in is the beef casserole, beef stew. I think they're all the same. So I have 2 packets of that. And that's into 800 millilitres of water. I think it tells me what the conversion is. No, it just says 400 per pack. So 800. Me do maths good. So I am literally going to pour that in. Now, if there isn't room in your pot to get your potatoes in, oh look, I'm not worried because I'm probably going to serve this on mashed potatoes, or oh my god, such a mess, or I'm going to serve it with rice. Oh my god, I've just made such a mess. So we're just going to give that a quick little mix together. So as I said, I'm not worried if I don't get the potatoes in here because I'm going to serve it probably with mashed potatoes. So if they fit in, they fit in. If they don't, they don't. We won't lose any sleepovers. Okay, so I think that's enough. Mixy mix. It only needs a gentle mix. So you just as well because it'd be all over the place if I needed any more. So I'm just going to pour that in. Now I am going to give that a bit of a mix just to make sure everything gets in on it. Now the one thing to remember when you're cooking with a slow cooker is because the lid goes on and it's sealed, so all the heat coming up that's making the condensation on the inside is going to go back into it, so your level of liquid will increase. So I might throw in a couple of potatoes. I'm not going to throw in any big ones. Actually, do you know what? We won't. We'll leave it there. We won't throw any more in. And what we do is we get this on, we're going to serve it with mashed potatoes. So the potatoes that we're going to go into this, I will keep, peel, and I will mash them and serve it on the potatoes, as opposed to the potatoes being into it. But by all means, you could throw in a little bit more water, put your potatoes in, and we'd be laughing. But we're not going to do that. So I am going to put the lid on that. Now what I do like to do is I like to start it on high. So it's going to go 3 hours on high and 5 hours on low. And that's the way I'm going to do it. So I'm going to put it on high, switched on, and we're going to leave it. And we will come back and check on that after 3 hours. And I'll show you what it's like after 3 hours. And then we'll knock it on to low. And then I'll show you what happens to it after that. Okay guys, so it is 3 hours later. It is now 2:15. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a stir and I'm going to hit it onto low. So let's just have a look and see how this bad boy is coming on. Oh my God, I wish you could smell that. So you can see it's nice, and there's the meat. The veg are all holding their shapes. So I'm just going to put it on low, and we are going to let that go for, as I said, in about another 4 hours. And then I'm going to do some mashed potatoes, and I'll show it to you when it's done and ready to be served. Okay guys, so confessional time. This is the next day. We didn't actually have this stew yesterday when I put it on. We turned it off at about 10 o'clock at night. I did cut in some small potatoes and let them sit in the pot overnight, absorbing all those juices and yumminess and delights. And I put it on for 4 hours on high today while the kids were in school. So I'm actually going to go now and fish out the bone. So I am just going to, there's that big chunk of marrow after coming. So you can see the bone is hollowed all the way through. So look at all that. All the marrow has gone into, oops, don't drop it because it's going to splash. So all the marrow has gone into the stew. So all that goodness has gone in. All the bits of meat that were on the bone when we put it in yesterday, I mean, that bone is clean. So I'm just going to give that a good stir around, and I'm going to get the potatoes on. I have it switched off, so it's just going to sit in its own heat, and I'm going to get rid of the bone. As you can see, let me just, the carrots and all have held their shape. Nothing has, even the meat, if I break up the meat, you can see it's lovely and tender, but there's still good chunks of it in there. But that is just so, so nice. Even the smell coming off, I wish you could smell it. It is gorgeous. Okay guys, just on a side note, when the kids came in from school yesterday and I told them I had put the stew on and we were going to have it that evening for dinner, they nearly had a heart attack. They were like, Mum, golden rule, you always told us steaks shouldn't, or steaks, I keep saying steaks, stew should not be served on the day it's cooked. And I couldn't really argue with them. So last night we had soup and sandwiches for tea, dinner. And today, obviously, we're going to have the stew. So my kids are here, they're hungry. They are just want me to stop waffling and serve it up. So that is what I'm going to do. So I've just taken out a bit of meat just to show you how tender it is. This is a teaspoon. I'm holding it at the very end, no pressure. Look, just falls apart. That meat is so tender and so beautiful and so flavoursome. So I cooked some soda bread earlier, so we're going to have this. I am going to do some mashed potatoes, but let me just show you this bad boy. Woo! Stand back. Can you see that bubble? I do have to go. But you'll see there, see the meat holds its shape. The carrots, they are the few little potatoes I threw in to get the potatoes, mashed potatoes, and I will show you when it's all served up. So that there is Hayley's dinner, and she's going to have that then with some homemade soda bread. And I mean, not just little slices. You see there, nice big thick slices so she can dip it in the soup of the stew. And that is one healthy, hearty dinner. I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I hope some of you will give it a go and try the cheaper cuts of meat and not be afraid of them. Just because they're cheap doesn't mean they're nasty. So remember, low and slow. Until the next time, take care of yourselves and each other.